was not only were they trying to search where our artillery batteries were, which were in this little village that we're going to now, also what they were trying to do if there was troop movements at any stage. And what they would do is they would put down a heavy artillery barrage in the hope that they would kill our troops, and we would do exactly the same. Also, the artillery guys were doing a thing, as I said earlier on, was looking at possible positions where artillery pieces would be, and they were putting an artillery barrage into that. Of the church. So the troops started to notice that it was the wrong time in the church, and when it got this certain time, and it always seemed to be when the troops were in the village, the Germans would actually shell, and it was causing major casualties. This incident caused major casualties. It is alleged that they then believed that there's a collaborator who was working for the Germans and telling the Germans when the British were in the village, and it was allegedly reported that he was found in the tower of the church. What the 36th Ulster Division done was took the clock hands off the church and took it back to Belfast. So today I've got the clock hands on the bus, and we're going to give it back to the village. Clock hands off the church was the 14th Battalion of the Royal Irish Rifles, the YCVs. And after the war, they would return back to the village to present the clock hands to the mayor and the people of Minnie. So what we're going to see here, guys, is the original clock hands, and we're going to be telling you the story of exactly why they took down the clock hands. As I said, it was a major devastation for the 36th Ulster Division prior to going into the Battle of the Somme. To my left is Ovley Wood, and that's where most of the troops from the 36th Ulster Division prior to the Battle of the Somme travelled down the communication trenches and in around O'Twill into the back of Tiffelwood. To the right hand side, when we get up to the top of the hill, you can actually see the command and view that you have towards Tiffel. There's Tiffel at the very top there, yeah, so you can see the view. And then you have Mini Chateau there. That was actually blown the bits. It was targeted by the Germans. However, deep inside that little house there, you actually have bunkers and cellars, and in it has the names of soldiers. I was lucky enough to be invited to go in and have a look, and when we done a research, many of the soldiers who engraved their name in the stone, because the stone was, what do you think it was? Limestone. Yep. And a lot of the soldiers would later become casualties or be killed during the Battle of the Somme, or the battles of the Somme. This is us now into Minnie. And we'll be greeted by the Mayor, Roger. What Roger done is, Roger used to be the previous Mayor, and then we had Patrick, and then Roger has now took over, and it's his dream to have a 36th Ulster Division museum in the Marie, and that's why the band's going to give him a couple of mementos to put up. Including your Irish passport. Invited us to come down. It was Rosie's dream as mayor. He wants the Marie to become a museum. So you'll get a chance to go in. Very, very historic to the 36th Ulster Division. Because if you read the plaque here, this memorial is to commemorate the 23 men of number 11 Platoon C Company, the 13th Battalion of the Royal Irish Rifles, the County Down Volunteers, who were killed or died later as a result of an enemy shell on the evening of the 28th of June 1916. 14 of them are buried in a mass grave in Martinsart, 5 in Forceville and 4 in Pusservilles Military Cemetery. We done a bit of research when we were doing the Linfield Memorial, and we also found that there was another soldier who died, George McCracken. His brother was Richard McCracken. Linfield has a very, very enriched history, and they're proud of the 7 trophies. And this man was wounded in battle. He was then brought down to the coast and later died of his wounds. The YCVs, and I was saying to my boss, if you try and think, this is so different from what it was like during the Great War. Them trees wouldn't have been there, and from the line of sight from Tifal, you can actually see the village church with the clock hands. The YCVs believe that every time the clock got to a certain time, the enemy poured a shell in, and it was during that time these men were killed. Ironically, they went up, and it is alleged that there was someone up there, but we haven't got the history. Maybe it's erased, people didn't want to know, but it is alleged that there was a collaborator working with the Germans to put it at a certain time. The YCVs took the clock hands and brought them back to Belfast. Later after the war, the YCVs returned to here, and you'll see the photographs just round the side, and they presented the Mayor of Martinsart at the time, which was Monsieur Mesnil, yep. And what they done is they presented him the clock hands, and also there is a stagger stick from Bob Major, Holland. So we can tell you the story about it, but this man is actually going to read out the letter that Richard McCracken, known to his comrades as Dick.
Please bear with me while I read this letter. Dear Anthony, it gives me great pleasure in answering your most kind and welcome letter, and for which I cannot thank you enough. Also, what was enclosed in it? Well, I'm glad your health is improving, and I hope it will not be long until I see you. I'm coming on in good style, and these chaps in this ward say I am cheery bird. But all the same, old Fritz gave me more than what I bargained for. He has smashed my right shoulder, but lucky no bones are broken, although bruised. He wounded me in 5 places, also a small one in the right leg below the knee. I am still in bed and will yet for a while I can take my food, and thank God it's a change from what we got a fortnight before the attack came off. Anthony, it is hard luck on poor Geordie. I can hardly believe it yet. Poor lad, he had suffered a terrible lot, but thank God he is safe now. How I escaped last night I will not know. I was standing along with him ready to go to the trenches when the shell burst right in the middle of us all, killing 24 and wounding over 30. What a sight. Legs, heads, arms were scattered in all directions. Poor Geordie got it in both legs and arms. I thought he would have pulled through, but when I heard he died, it affected me. Then I was left with Bob Hamilton to go to the trenches. Just the 2 of us. We reached there at 6 o'clock the following morning after a terrible experience. I thought of Geordie the whole time. I could not find the heart to speak to anybody. Then the time came for us to go over the top, and firmly speaking, I have never seen a fellow going into almost certain death that those chaps from Ansborough. They did not know what fear was, and truly Ansborough should be proud of them. Anthony, it was hell. We had to go up the hill, and the Germans were prepared to meet us from away at their 4th line. They had machine guns in dozens, and they kept blazing away at us. Chaps were falling all around me, some never to rise again. Those who were wounded were crawling back to our own lines, and to this point the German artillery was keeping up a terrifying fire to keep our reinforcements back, but shells and bullets stopped us. We went on, and when I reached the German third line, I was bandaging up a wounded comrade when I got my final touch. You know, I got wounded twice in the head before this, but it never seemed to trouble me. I went on doing my work till he knocked me out completely. When I was hit, I gave a shout like this: "Dick is done." Then a chap called Brown came over to me, and I mind him saying, "Ah, poor Dick." I asked him for a drink and he gave me one. I lay there, but I don't know for how long. After some time I wakened up, and it seemed to be quite some strong. I could feel the blood running down my legs. So I says to myself, I am not dead yet. So I started crawling. I reached a place called the Sunken Road. I got bandaged up, but the Germans started to shell this place as we had good covering in it. I dug a hole in the bank with my left hand, and I got into it and slept a while. Then I got wounded again, slightly, in the right leg. At this point I had only about 100 yards to go to our own lines, but I dare not face it as the Huns were shelling it very hard. At last I started crawling again, and by God's help I reached our dressing station about 5 o'clock. The doctor gave me rum, and I mind nothing more till I wakened up in the 100th Field Ambulance. So Anthony, I had a rough time of it, but I am all right now, and I expect to see you all in a few months. Joey and all the boys must have been wounded before, as I could not hear anything about them, and I was inquiring a lot about them. But I am glad they are not as bad as I wish them all a speedy recovery. Your Willie is all right. He was to take charge of the German prisoners, I suppose. He will have a lot of souvenirs. I could have a lot, but when a chap is wounded, he doesn't care about them. Anthony, the Ulster Division has suffered, and our battalion has suffered, but the Germans have suffered more. Their dead was lying about everywhere. I hope to relate the whole experience someday, sitting in an armchair, how I long for it. But at the same time, I'm going to take as long out of this place as I can, for I have even seen enough of France, and our house has paid its share in this awful war. One favour I ask of you: try and keep the old woman in good heart. Don't let her fret. The death of Geordie will knock the heart out of her. Well, Anthony, I can't say much more than this. Tell Mrs. Donan and all the rest I send them my best respects. Also Mrs. Bryan's and all of them. So closing now, and again thanking you, wishing you all the best of health and good luck. From your old chum, Dick McCracken.
So you heard it first hand. He was with his brother. Shell comes down. He's hoping that his brother is going to be still alive. You heard the horrifying reality of it. Also, how he survived, he says he doesn't know. Then when he goes down to the trenches, all the people that he was going into battle with are dead or injured. He goes back down to the Somme, goes over the top, and he was quite withdrawn. You hear in that letter, he's quite withdrawn, because what's he doing? He's worrying about his brother. But there's still hope there that his brother will still survive. He's hit about 4 times. And it's ironic that he will then be bandaged up and good health, return to the sport that he loves with Linfield and win the 7 trophies after the nightmare that they had here. One other wee thing in that letter that strikes home is his mother, the old dear. Yeah. So, can you imagine that woman? The telegram boy comes up with that message, and she reads, "Geordie is dead." There's still hope there because Richard is still out. But what they would have done is communicated back with her again. And can you imagine that feeling that she would have had with that other telegram boy, maybe the same one, coming up to tell her that her son was wounded? A couple of other wee things in that letter. He's done with France. He's seen it all. He's saying, "You know what I want to do here? I want to try and get a bit more time. If I can probably make the most of it, I will." So that is the story, and can you see how historic it is? So, well done for doing that. That wasn't easy. That wasn't easy, and I just put that in the day. So it was. Yeah. So what we're going to do, guys? Do we have Lee, Ivan, and who else? You want? Is Lee there?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is Ivan, he's part of the committee. So yes, yep. This is Lee, he's the chairman. The general. So who's one?
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the Kilcluney Volunteers Flute Band and our party, I'd first of all like to thank you very much for your hospitality here and allowing us to share in what is a shared history. We all, and particularly people of Northern Ireland, because of the sacrifice that was made by all those people, we do feel this is part of who we are as a people. I hope you can understand some of what I'm saying. I would like to give you this small token of our appreciation for your hospitality. I do hope you'll be able to display it within the museum so that when people come, they'll know that the Kilcluney Volunteers was here, okay, for years to come.
C'est très gentil, merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je vous remercie. Je ne parle pas un mot d'anglais, excusez-moi. Mais je suis très content et la commune de Mesnil Martinsart, très content de vous accueillir. Vous serez les bienvenus. Je souhaite qu'on perpétue ce souvenir, de continuer à vous accueillir pour ce souvenir, les cloches, le dévouement des soldats qui ont contribué à libérer la France, surtout Mesnil Martinsart. Soyez toujours les bienvenus et merci beaucoup d'être là. Merci.
Yeah. He says, thank you very much for everyone coming here. He's very sorry that his English, anglais, is little. He thinks it's very important that you come here, you are made welcome. And again, he mentioned about the shared history of the French and the Ulster soldiers. And he hopes to see you back here again.
Merci.
That was it. So, if people want to come in, yeah, I have to tell Rosie something. To go to Mini Ridge Cemetery. Rosie, his job also is a farmer, and he says we were trying to get the buses. It's probably about 2 miles from here. It's like a wee track, but usually you can get up to about less than say 500 metres away from it. But basically he said with the heavy rain and everything, the ground is just so weak that it would just, the bus would just sink and you'd be stuck in it. Also he says that the muck with, it's like a river running down at the minute, and he just says you just wouldn't get to it. So what we're going to do there, guys, is bear in mind that the last thing we want to do is get a bus stuck or people to walk for near enough 2 miles. We're actually going to go to Martinsart Cemetery. Martinsart Cemetery is very, very unique because it's completely different from some of the other Commonwealth grave cemeteries that you'll see. The reason being the colour of the headstone. It is a red, can anybody tell me? Horsel? Yeah? Yep. And basically people will ask me, why is it red? It's quite simple. What happened was the Commonwealth Graves Commission experimented with different stones to see can they get a better lifespan out of it, and the red has just stuck with that cemetery, so it is completely different. What we've got in there is the mass grave. I have a picture of the cross that was on the mass grave in Martinsart, which is there. Yeah, and also what we have pictures of some of the casualties there. Also what we have in the cemetery is an order was given by Major General Nugent that no commanding officer was to go over the top. The 36th Division suffered 2 casualties from their commanding officers. One was a guy called Ross Smith, who was commanding the 10th Battalion of the Derrys, and it was, remember that wood we would come up, which was called Ovley Wood. Basically what would happen is they're coming down at night and he would have a real severe sprain of the ankle, and he would then be took out of action. The other guy was the commander of the 10th Battalion, South Belfast of the Royal Irish Rifles, Colonel Bernard, and he would be killed at a little stronghold called Gordon Castle. There was 2 strongholds within the woods, and they were like protective headquarters for them. And he was there when a German shell came in and killed him. So they were the 2 casualties. Ross Smith would later be took back to Londonderry, and he suffered a hard time. And what we mean by that, a difficult time, is that a lot of people thought that that was done on purpose to get him out of the fight. And speaking to people from Londonderry, they says that it was a horrible time for him, and he would actually die coming home. He lived in Dromad, and he was coming home from Londonderry, and the cart that he was travelling in overturned and he was killed. Martinsart Military Cemetery, and as I said, except for these 3 soldiers, this was the mass grave. There is a picture of the original mass grave. You heard a witness account from Richard McCracken when he was writing home that he was there when this happened. Harry survived it. Head, limbs, and basically these men were buried in a mass grave, and there's the original grave. Some of the casualties of some of the men. Also, there was poems wrote home, because when people back home in County Down heard this story, they were so touched to move. And well done to Russell, he's only just been given that. And it's not easy to talk in front of 100 people. So Russell, over to yourself.
Peace tonight, heroic spirits. Pain is over past, all the strife, its life is ended. You may rest at last. With the potion that amazing well from out of the deep, of your being no more needed, but you may sleep. Sleep who given for all others, battle till the victory nigh. You too toiled, and heartbreak over, had the right to die. We may guard the grave that holds you, as a shrine of truth lighted by pure devotion of your radiant youth. We, you died for, may forget you. You will have no care, who content tonight or sleeping, painless, dreamless there.
And that, guys, that's not easy. That's not easy to do that. So it's not. And just to give you were at the site. Think of the clock bands, mass grave. At the same time, the YCBs here, the Mini, we actually came down here as well, because that's the whole thing of why the clock hands were brought back to Belfast. And who ever thought that's bringing back? Can't tell you how that There must be maybe having a wee beer and someone pours them clock cans and they bring it back. But that's what they made sure that they've done on their pilgrimage. So our next grave that we're going to before we're giving you a wee bit of time is what Jim English says, yeah? And we're going to make our way up there. And it's a
gentleman here, right, is Colonel H.C. Bernard. Colonel Herbert Clifford Bernard killed was the commanding officer of the South Belfast Volunteers of the Ulster Division, and the news of his death will be received with regret in Belfast, where he was a well-known and popular officer. He was a cousin of the Archbishop of Dublin. Bernard, he received his commission in the Hampshire Regiment on 23rd of August 1884, and the same year he joined the Indian Staff Corps. He served with the Burmese expedition 1885 to 1889, was awarded the medal with 2 clasps, and in 1891 he accompanied the expedition to Manipur. He also saw service in the Burmese War 1889 to 1892 and with the Chinook Punitive Column 1891. He was promoted to the rank of captain on the 23rd of August 1895. Major was 4 years later, then Lieutenant Colonel on the 25th of April 1909 when he was appointed to command the 45th Sikhs, and Colonel on the 22nd of October 1913. Colonel Bernard succeeded Lieutenant Colonel Tempest Stone in the command of the South Belfast Volunteers on the 14th of October 1914. He was a very capable officer and the most popular with all ranks in his battalion. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your attention. And I hand you back to my learned friend Philip. Thank you.
Because you would be looking for a Royal Irish cap badge. Can anybody tell me why the cap badge is different? Well, Jim, do you want to tell them why?
I haven't a clue.
Because well, that is that bit. Basically, it's because that was his last regiment. Yeah, and he decided to wear the last cap badge, so that's why. And it's quite easy. You could walk around here, and if you didn't know at all, and bearing in mind that Major General Nugent gave the command out to all his commanding officers. And I'm going to leave you with this. He writes a letter home to his wife. The fate of my division is not in my men's hands. The fate of my division lays upon other divisions. He gave a direct order out, and it just shows you that every commanding officer obeyed it. No commanding officer was to go over the top. The reason being, he knew if this battle was to go wrong, he needed the commanding officers to rebuild these battalions. Only 2 casualties. Ross Smith was the Lieutenant Colonel, commanding officer, off the Derrys. That wood just over there at the other side of the bus is Offaly Wood. During the night when they were going down, he would have a bad sprain on the ankle and he was casevaced. Yep. And then Colonel Bernard would be killed by a shell in Teefel Wood. So we're going to continue the battle off the Somme as quick as we can in the graveyard, because you see the mirror and one of the representatives that sort of closed the road off to make it a bit safer for us as well. You know what I mean? So have a wee look about as quick as you can, back on the bus, and then we'll do the battle of the Somme.
At the age of 16 years, he left his home in tears. His mother watched as he walked out the door, as his family bid farewell. His neighbors wished him well. From the road his dad and brother took before, from the Shankill road they went, their young lives to be spent. On the first day of July, so long ago, all the deeds that they have done, the glories they have won, we'll remember as long as the bright red poppies grow. On the 9th day of July, you could hear a mother's cry. Her eyes were red and filled with loving tears. Oh my God, my son has died. He was fighting side by side with the boys and men of the Ulster Volunteers. From the Shankill road they went, their young lives to be spent. On the first day of July, so long ago, all the deeds that they have done, the glories they had won, we'll remember as long as the bright red poppies grow. We'll remember as long as the bright red poppies grow.